I'm so excited about the topic that we're going to cover today, which is all about how to manage social media marketing for your business. Ultra relevant, and I know top of mind for everybody. I'm very excited to share just a little bit of background information on our esteemed expert today, Ashley Rector, for anybody who doesn't know her. Ashley is the founder of Quimby Digital, a social media and paid advertising agency for high growth startups around the world. She's also a former attorney who launched a digital and print magazine publishing articles from over 6,000 women around the world. We're so excited to learn from your expertise today, Ashley. We know how valuable your time is, and we're very grateful to you for investing in Dreamers and Doers and in the community in this way. With that, I will hand it over to you, and I will also mention to everybody that please feel free to share your questions throughout the presentation. As they crop up, you can share them in the chat. And also, I think we'll have a couple minutes for time for questions at the end, but feel free to share them throughout as they crop up for you. And I'll hand the mic over to Ashley. Thank you, Ashley.
Yay. Thank you, Nicole, for the lovely introduction. I'm really excited to be here. And I also see some friendly faces of people I've networked with before in Dreamers and Doers. So that's exciting. Thanks for being here. So I created a swanky slide deck, which I'm happy to send everybody after this as well. So we're going to walk through a presentation, but definitely ask your questions as we're going through because we're going to cover a lot of material. If anyone has joined one of my workshops or sessions in the past, at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions on social media marketing, even if it's specific to your business. Utilize me. You have me for an hour. So without further ado, let's kick this off. You're going to see this as Google Slides, and I'm about to present it. Okay. Can everybody see okay?
Yeah, that looks perfect.
Yay. Okay. Okay. So, Quimby, Nicole gave a brief background. I started the company 5 years ago, and we do organic social media marketing and paid advertising for brands around the world. My team is a mix of full time and freelance. We're all ladies, so female led creative team. And we absolutely love what we do. So I have 21 clients right now, and all of them have organic social media marketing with us. So I live and breathe this every single day. Like Nicole said, I was an attorney. So I like to say I'm a recovering attorney. And I launched a digital and print magazine, scaled it, sold that company, and it led me to launching Quimby. So, without further ado, the first thing that we need to talk about in terms of social media strategy is selecting the right social channels. So, I think one thing that brands, especially in the beginnings of their business, like let's say the first 3 to 5 years, they try to be on every single social media channel and do it at like well. So it's hard to be everywhere. Think about it. You have to figure out your target demo and where you should live. So understanding your brand's mission, ethos, target demographic, it's critical. And figure out where they live and focus 80% of your effort there. So let's say it's Instagram. I would focus your strategy, your efforts, your content on Instagram and narrow in and really figure out how to convert there before you start blasting out stuff on every other social channel, because that's how founders get spread thin. That's how consultants get spread thin. So I would say picking the right social channels is paramount. So, how do you do that? So understanding your brand's mission, ethos, target demographic, conduct a competitor analysis. So not only are you going to look at why they're posting the type of content they are on certain social channels, but which ones are resonating and which ones aren't. You'll be able to tell really quickly because engagement, so likes, comments, like follower account, you'll see like where are they the most active? Maybe they're posting way more on LinkedIn than they are on Facebook, let's say. And so kind of cherry pick out what's resonating. Consider your team's capability to manage multiple social channels. So you might have a fully stacked team and you're able to launch on 4 channels, or you're able to manage 5 channels effectively. Set the strategy for each one of those. Or if it's one person, like I said, double down on the channels that make sense for your brand. Also think about your social media goals. So we always ask this, we don't often. We ask what the goals are for social on a quarterly basis. So it changes frequently, and you would be surprised. It's at all level of business, from like seed round to Series B. Quarterly goals change. So sometimes you're concerned with follower count, and maybe it's more of a vanity metric. Sometimes you're focused really on hiring. Or web traffic. So think about your goals because that's going to impact your content.
Ashley, we have a quick question in the chat.
Yeah.
What is organic versus like another form of social media? Like, what does organic mean in comparison to other forms?
Yeah. So, in terms of organic social, it means we're not putting paid advertising dollars behind it. So, on the paid ad side, you would be setting up a campaign, creating assets to put ad dollars in Meta or TikTok or whatever. So, organic is kind of like earned media, if that makes sense. Um, and then actionable tips for high growth startups. So I put some actionable tips in here for startups. So start with a focused approach. Usually we'll look at like two hero platforms in the beginning and really double down there. We identify the secondary channels and we create content, but on a much smaller scale. We review and adjust strategy, like I said, on a quarterly basis. We're looking a lot at engagement metrics and then also traffic being pushed to the website. We recommend a quarterly deep dive. You can nix campaigns at this. So this is a really good time to look at the campaigns that you're running for that quarter and see underperformers. And I would get rid of those completely or retire them for a later date. So here's some industry insights because everyone always asks me, okay, well, I'm a B2B business. Like, where should I be? So this is where we commonly see businesses fall. So B2B, LinkedIn, Meta, X, YouTube, D2C, Meta, TikTok, potentially Pinterest and Snapchat, B2C, Meta, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. So how do you develop a social media strategy? There are so many things you can include. So I'm going to walk through some of these. So let me know if you have any questions. So you definitely have to define clear objectives aligned with your business goal. So brand awareness, lead generation. We already talked about target audience. We already talked about competitors. So your content pillars are going to be broad. So here's an example: in education, inspiration, sales, travel. Once we identify content pillars, we really drill down on campaigns. So under education, a campaign could be educate the community on this femtech product that impacts menopause. Like, it's very specific, and we measure to see engagement rate, impressions, whatever, in connection with that campaign. Build out the strategy channel by channel. So, TikTok's going to have a very different engagement strategy than, let's say, Facebook. And then you might not talk about all of your content pillars on every single channel. So some content pillars, let's say sales, you might not talk about as much on TikTok as you would on LinkedIn or something like that. In terms of hashtags, I would identify the hashtags you are always going to use. So like ones related to your brand, and make sure you're keeping track and measuring, on a quarterly basis, which hashtags are performing well for you. And I know I'm talking a lot about measurement right now. So we use a tool called Agora Pulse. It's Sprout Social, like Hootsuite. There's so many tools you can use. So I highly recommend using a tool to track your metrics because it will plug in across multiple social channels. Setting KPIs. So some brands won't set KPIs in the beginning, and I think this is a miss. So we'll say, hey, our goal is to reach 20% increase in impressions month over month, or 30, whatever it is, 30% increase, or we want to increase follower count by 10%. And we measure against that. There are industry standards out there that you can see, like what is common for the industry. Agencies have their own standards. And I actually included some of the standards within this deck, so you'll get those as well. Community engagement plan. So it's really important twofold. One, what is the tone of voice when you're responding to comments and DMs? And also, what is your outbound engagement strategy? So, are you sending out trial codes to people who align with your product? Are you trying to secure podcast opportunities? Are you reaching out to micro influencers? Like, what does that outreach strategy look like? And how do you talk about it? Also, I think it's really important to have like a PR crisis plan in relation to social. So we've gotten into situations where something happens from a PR crisis standpoint, and the first place people go to reach out to is on social media. So, like, are we responding back to comments that are political in nature, religious? Like, figure out how you're going to respond so you're not coming up with those on the fly. Because it makes it that much harder to manage at scale if you're getting hundreds or even thousands of comments. So here's some actionable tips. Definitely experiment with various content formats. I would also outline those in your social strategy. See who in your network is up for collaboration. Many of the founders we work with are friends with other founders, and they can expand their networks simply by doing mutual collaborations, whether it's at a founder level or on a brand level. So leverage your network. That's what it's there for. So we already talked about KPIs. Obviously, A/B testing is important. So figuring out post types and times to optimize your engagement. A lot of the social tools will tell you this as well. So here's some Instagram and Facebook industry insights that I pulled. It's broken down by industry so you can see the engagement rate. I will say the larger your follower account, the lower the engagement rate is going to be. We've just seen it that way. Also, carousel posts seem to be having a high engagement rate right now on Instagram. So I put that in there as well. And then Twitter, I don't know if anyone is still leveraging Twitter. We do have a few brands who still want to be on Twitter, and I think it definitely is important for certain segments. So you can see the engagement rates are a little bit lower on here. And here is TikTok. So LinkedIn, you can kind of see that they hover higher for brands. But if you have less than 5,000 followers, it's actually lower, which is interesting, which is kind of the opposite of Instagram. And also, I included some of the links to the reporting in here too, if you want to pull your own data. So here are some follower growth rates. So average follower growth rate on Instagram, 1.34%. I feel like all of these numbers seem really low. You're probably looking at them like, what? So there's definitely ways to boost these numbers in terms of content, or if you're running paid ads, or, so use these as a baseline. I think it's important to know the averages because you don't want to set yourself up for failure if you set a KPI that's way too high, because you didn't know what the baseline was. Influencer collaborations. We always get asked about influencer collaborations. We run micro influencers, but we only run them for existing clients. We've seen the biggest return on investment in micro influencers. And I think there's a ton of reasons why, but mainly authenticity. Their audience that's smaller trusts them more. So obviously identify influencers whose audience aligns with your target market. I think collaborative content that's authentic does the best. So yes, when we're talking to influencers, we have a certain idea for how content will go, but the reason that their audience listens to them and their content performs well is because of their unique spin. So we don't put a ton of guardrails up when it comes to content because we want them to dream up content that they believe resonates with their audience. So it's more co-collaborative. And I think that's why I enjoy working with micro influencers more. Definitely clearly define the goals and expectations. So if you talk to influencers, that's the biggest hang up for them, is that goals and expectations aren't communicated. very effectively. So letting them know, like, this is what we're hoping to get out of this campaign. Like, this is what we're hoping to get from you. Like, these are the metrics we want to see. So be very clear. One pitfall we see is negotiating paid advertising rights. So oftentimes brands will want to use influencer content and put paid ad spend behind it, but not negotiate that up front. Like that's definitely a negotiation point that you'll want to include. It's definitely not a given. Everyone always asks me about how much influencers earn per post. Obviously, this varies. I mean, look at how like big the spectrum is in terms of pricing, but I wanted to include some baseline numbers for you. So, employee advocacy is really important. We actually see this the most on LinkedIn. So, when we run LinkedIn company pages, it's hard to get reach on a company page. Like good content, yes, it performs, but it doesn't perform as well as when employees are advocating for the brand itself. So how do you educate existing employees within an organization on how to optimize their LinkedIn profiles? Like what types of company content to share? How do they talk about the company content? So I think this is often missed, but it's very important. You'll also see employees, depending on the brand, sharing on Instagram and Facebook as well. So I think it's good to educate across all channels. Just more common than not, it's LinkedIn that we're seeing the most action. So, effective community management. I always say content is king, but community management is queen. So, you can create the best content on the planet. If you're not actively engaging with your community, like you're not going to see the best results. So, brands who end up working with us, we have a community manager specifically, and their whole job is running community. So responding promptly to comments and messages, obviously, to build a responsive brand image, foster discussions, and encourage user-generated content. Checking the DMs frequently, making sure that there's follow-up. So usually when we're going in with startups or even bigger companies, there's always a disconnect on the social media and customer service side. So customers are more likely to go to social media and reach out to a brand for a personal connection. And also if they're having a customer service issue. And so there's this line that happens where when does it fall into customer service and doesn't stay in the social media person's realm. So establishing those clear lines of communication between customer service inquiries and social media will definitely help fill any stop gaps. You can build saved templates into Instagram direct messages. So I think it's good to build those out, especially for things that you often get in DMs. It just makes sure that everybody is saying the right thing if you have multiple community managers within an account. We create an FAQ sheet because obviously questions and answers come up a lot, and we're not going to save every single response. So I think it's good to have this, especially if you ever have turnover within your organization. Paid ads. So paid advertising is another realm of social that we manage. So once we get organic up and running, we often invest in paid ads. So you can think about organic social as more top of funnel and paid ads as middle funnel. So we're driving leads with paid ads. We closely, obviously, are monitoring the performance on organic social because if something is performing really well on organic social, it's a good indicator that it could perform well on paid. So we'll bring it over into paid as well. So here are just some key points. So obviously targeting is important. You can tell that all of this social strategy relies on understanding who you're actually talking to. It's no different for paid advertising. Choosing the right ad format as well. Videos have been performing well for us right now in terms of ads. And then setting realistic budgets. We run A/B testing on everything. So, you know, a copy could be performing well and it's just the image that's not working. So definitely switch out to see. Let's see, anything else in here I have for you? Yeah. So in terms of deciding revenue goals, we sit down and we try to understand like, okay, if your revenue goal is X for the quarter and you want to invest X dollars in paid ad spend, like what can we determine is the ROI on the investment? So I encourage you to look at it that way as well. So if you're putting X amount of ad dollars in, like what is the ROI you're giving, including the time you're spending? Also, when do you bring in an external partner? So we've gone through this strategy. Obviously, social media is a beast to manage. It's no secret. So I think there is a time and place to hack social media marketing, and then I think there's a time and place to bring in an external partner. And really, it depends on who you have on your team. So if it's just you and you're extremely overwhelmed, and you can't focus on other areas of the business, like now it's time to delegate to an expert. Um, if you need help with sales, if you like, there's so many reasons, right? Like if you need to bolster brand visibility, bringing in a team of people who do this all the time basically cuts your ramp up time in half. So you have to decide, like, do I have somebody on my team that's an expert? If I don't have somebody on my team that's an expert, do I have time to dedicate this to like thoughtfully manage it and kind of go from there? Um, I'll leave this in case you guys want to read it for a second. So, in terms of ways to evaluate partners, I would start with a smaller project to evaluate the partner's effectiveness. So, sometimes we come in on a quarterly basis and work together. Your partners want your success just as much as you want success. So, most agency owners I talk to, or even freelancers, like they don't, if they're not moving the needle, they don't want you to waste money. At least any good partner should. Regularly review and communicate. So it's helpful to be in weekly communication or biweekly communication. We're often talking to our clients on Slack or through email, or at least touching base with them biweekly. Things are changing in the business. And if you have an external stakeholder, they need to know. Um, and then leverage your partner's expertise to understand like what's working with other brands, what are they seeing, how can you guys implement new strategies. It might be an even like at other parts of marketing departments. So, and that is it. So if you need to get a hold of me or you want the slide deck, this is how you would do so. And now I want to answer like specific questions in relation to social.
Amazing. So I feel like people can chat them in, or I feel like since we're in gallery view, we can also unmute and ask questions that way, whatever way works for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. There's like so much that I can talk about. So it's hard to stay broad. So if you have very specific topics about like your organization, your social accounts, anything, like I'm happy to even get more specific.
Thank you, Ashley. While we're waiting, that was so helpful. And thank you for being up for sharing info after the event too. And I'll be sure to link that in so that when we share this in recording, people can get a chance to have access to that.
Yes, of course.
Hey, Morgan,
Hey,
Hey,
go
I
for it.
have a specific question, like super, super specific.
yeah.
Um, I haven't found anyone else that has our same niche. And so trying to find like competitors to then do that analysis to see like which channel makes the most sense. I don't even know where to start because I don't even know like what,
What are
because our
your
niche is so specific.
okay? What do you mind sharing what your niche is?
Yeah. So I own a bookkeeping firm and we specifically work with owners that have multiple businesses.
Okay.
Um, so I've seen accounting firms on different platforms and I've seen, different strategies and different brand voices, but not like that specific niche.
Yeah. So what I would do is because it is very specific. So what I would do is look at verticals that are really similar to yours. So like what about an M&A advisory firm? Often small business owners that go through M&A firms have multiple businesses that they're selling. So like I know that kind of content is very corporate and buttoned up, but like what does that look like? What about fractional CFOs? That could be a good place to look in terms of content. So I would start looking at like people who are almost similar to you, like that provide services to that target demo. Does that make sense?
Yes, that I hadn't even thought of M&A firms, but that is like exactly
Yeah.
exactly it. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
just see what kind of content they're posting that people are engaging with that's like relevant to what you guys do. That's what I would do.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question. What do you think of for brands that have like small budget, working like below mini social or anything like that for like UGC content? Like, what would be like your recommendation around that? And do you feel like it's helping or it's actually not really moving the needle?
Um, so UGC content, their budget's below using mini social. Is that what you said?
Yeah, is that like their budget is like mini social, but it's not like working with like a full social media agency. Like, do you feel like working with below mini social or other companies like that is good? Is there like any watch out that you would have with that?
Yeah, so I guess it would depend on what they can manage internally versus externally. So when we think about, at least when I think about the social media manager's role, like, and we've talked before, but we break it up to like a social media strategist, a copywriter, a video editor who's a graphic designer, and a community management person. And those four people work with brands on our side. So if you think about those four buckets, like what is the founder good at managing? And then I would bring in like laser focused people for other things because that would be an easier way to put together a budget than bringing on a full service agency. On the UGC side, so same thing. I would look at competitors and see who they've used. And then if you're thinking about Instagram at least, you can click on a profile and toggle down and it'll show you like-minded people. Like if you follow this person, you should follow X, Y, and Z that has similar content. So that could be a way to find other influencers. Also look by hashtag and do the manual outreach yourself and see. Instead of going through an influencer agency. So it's going to be more manual, obviously, because the budget's lower, but I would fraction out like what is taking the most brain power from you. Do you know what I mean?
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I like mini social though. I feel like that's like an inexpensive way to get 25 UGC influencers to create content. But honestly, like on TikTok, if you look up UGC influencer, like thousands of people show up.
I know, that's why I'm like, maybe it's less overwhelming on mini social than going on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. Look by hashtag niche and see who's producing content. That's what I would do. But yeah, it is. It's manual.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We have a question in the chat too.
I've just
Oh, are you reading it?
Yeah, I was going to read it. I'm trying to
Perfect,
build
perfect.
a Substack platform. In your experience, are there any social channels that are particularly strong at building a community on this platform? I'm trying to decide if I want to focus on TikTok, Instagram, or Threads. The niche is reading, writing content, if that's helpful. Yeah, let me think about this. So I guess in terms of like how professional the content is, like, so I'd have to see it, but this is what I would say. Like, LinkedIn would be a good converter, I would imagine, for Substack. I don't know how large your LinkedIn audience is. But if you think about it, people can click directly through to subscribe to Substack on a platform like that versus Instagram. They'd have to go to your bio and like, do you know what I mean? So I would think about the social channels that have a really easy way to convert. Um, and then there has to be like a reason to sign up. So for me, it's more so content, right? So like, how are you talking about Substack in a way that it wants somebody to convert? So like, are you distilling down the post that you put out into 4 or 5 sentences and then like leaving it with a hook so they want to? Because realistically, stories could convert on Instagram as well. TikTok would be harder, but like it's not impossible. I would just have to think about that longer. So, yeah, so my gut instinct tells me LinkedIn. And then, yeah, possibly Threads. Yeah, I don't know if that's helpful. I think I'd have to see your Substack to like know further.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's helpful. Thanks so much.
Cool. Anybody else? Nobody's asked me, like, I'm trying to think of other things people have asked me. Like, does shadow banning exist? How do I get my business manager account like unblocked from Facebook? Like stuff like that. TikTok ads. I've been asked about that. I don't really like TikTok ads, so I don't see them as a huge converter right now. And we work with TikTok, so uh
I'm being shy, Ashley, but I can ask a question. I
okay, go
just
ahead.
my well, I think I have two questions. One is like I over the course of time on my personal Instagram account have wound up following so many people, and I've tried to figure out how to like unfollow because my follower like what who I'm following way exceeds who's following me,
Mhm.
which seems like a no-no. So that's part one of my question. And then I guess part two of my question is just like I've gone through so many iterations. I've been running my business, my voice coaching business for 13 years, I guess. And I've gone through like so many iterations of where we live online and like where we focus. And right now I just feel like really like there's like kind of a mess on the internet of what's been created in the past. And I wish I could just like wipe everything clean and start over. And we
Yeah.
actually did just start over with a new Instagram account that's actually the business's account as opposed to like me mixed in with the business.
Mhm.
Um, and the place that I've come to about like what I want to do on that account is basically like the least friction stuff for me are to show up in an Instagram live, like interview a member of our community, and then
Cool.
basically treat it like a place where there's like flyers where like people can understand what we're offering. And like I kind of have been like, okay, those are the two places that are the least friction for me that I can actually show up for. Like, what else do I need to ask my team to do so I'm not just it's not just like a stream of Instagram lives and boring Canva posts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so number one, like we don't believe in the like you follow more people, like the ratio anymore. So I would unfollow people that just like you're not aligned with for sure. But I wouldn't worry about like on my personal account, I think I follow more people than who follow me. And I'm like a social media manager, like agency owner. So and pretty active. So don't worry about it. There are apps you can download that will like mass unfollow. I will say it's against Instagram's API, even those exist. So it only does like X amount of interactions in an hour. So whether that is making people like stop following you, so ghost accounts, bots, whatever, and also you stop following other people. So just keep that in mind, like use it at your own risk. Um, and then in terms of showing up online, it's great that you separated out the business account from your personal because I imagine there might be a point in time where you don't want to be the face of the company all of the time. So in terms of content, like I don't know that I would post just like a bunch of flyers about your services because I always think about it like a consumer. So like why am I following somebody like on this channel? And personally, I hate being sold. So like I don't know about you, like so I think on Instagram specifically when it comes to service-based businesses or services, like people want educational content. They want like high value nuggets of things or they want behind the scenes or they want like authenticity or like actionable tips. Do you know what I mean? Like they want stuff for free. So they're not going to care about like yeah, like they care about your services but they don't care about your services. Does that make sense? So I would think
It
about
does, yeah.
yeah, think about the types of like high value, even short snippets of content you can give, and that will be way more impactful than just creating like stuff about your services. I hope that's helpful. And then in terms of lives, I think that's great. All of the platforms are pushing live video content, so I think that's awesome. Um, I would just have an agenda for them. So like people who join them aren't like, what are we doing here? You know, like and then yeah, keep if you like doing them, keep doing them. But have your team just map out like what is like our lifestyle on these channels. Do you know what I mean? Like who are we on here? Like what do we like to do? Like what's our team even interested in? Maybe some of those interests can be on Instagram. Like our team really likes astrology, so like we throw up astrology content because everybody's interested in it, and that always plays like really well. So we try, like try to be engaging, try to give educational stuff, and then naturally you'll draw your crowd to you. I don't know. I hope that's helpful.
It's really helpful. Thank you. I think maybe the reason I had the idea about the flyers is just because there's been a divide, like where people find our social media and then they're like, okay, so what do you actually do? But maybe it's just directing people back to a really clear website.
Yeah. Or your bio might be confusing.
Okay.
So consider like looking at your bio and optimizing it so it's just like very clear on who you serve and what you do. I do think you have to like push your product, but I just think that it's like a fraction of the time, if that makes sense. Um, what's the ideal frequency of posting on LinkedIn and Instagram? We usually do it based by industry and like the strategy we set, but normally like we're posting on Instagram at least 3 times a week, and one of them's a video, and on LinkedIn we're posting twice a week. But like I said, it varies based on like who the business is. And then with Instagram stories, God, it just depends, but we're optimizing those for engagement. So polls and stickers and all of that good stuff. As a bootstrapped solopreneur with a social team and targeting women 35 plus, I've been ignoring TikTok since supposedly a younger audience, but is that a mistake? So I think it depends on like what your product or service is in terms of TikTok. So yeah, it skews younger, but everybody consumes video content on TikTok actually. So like even my parents who are in their late 60s are could like send me TikTok videos. Do you know what I mean? So like just because someone isn't actively posting on there doesn't mean that they're not consuming. So that's what I think is interesting about TikTok. Whereas like the Instagram generation is like, we're posting, we're sharing our lives, like blah, blah, blah. But on TikTok, like people create accounts simply to just consume content. So I do think that your target audience is there. I think it just depends on like what your product or service is, if you should be there. So where do you see a social media strategy coming into play when you're diversifying offers? Basically, if you're starting a brand new offer that doesn't have social proof, isn't a fit for current clients, is an organic social strategy the place to start? Yeah, I don't know. So I guess it depends on like how different your offer is from your other offerings. Um, so I think social is a great place to test things for sure. The only reason I'm hesitating is like if you're a handbag company and then you decide to like also set up like a petting zoo at your store. Do you know what I'm saying? So like I think it really depends on what the offers are. So like if it is in the flywheel of like what you're doing, then heck yeah, like test it on organic social. There's no reason why you shouldn't, and see what the feedback is. But if it's going to really confuse your target audience about like what you actually do as a business owner, then I guess I would hesitate against it. But it also depends on like how big's your organic social presence. If it's not very big and it's like 40 people are going to see it, like, I don't know, like what's the risk? You can always delete it later. So I think it just depends. Which I keep saying it depends. Everyone's like, great. So, here's another question. Is YouTube considered social media these days? It's been my most successful place for video content over the years and thinking about investing in it more again. Yes, it absolutely is considered social media. And I would try out YouTube Shorts as well. Those have been performing really well. So definitely double down on YouTube. Video content is king right now. So Instagram's trying to be TikTok, TikTok's trying to be YouTube, and YouTube is trying to be like Netflix. So that's how that works. So yeah, absolutely all for YouTube. I also wonder if you have thoughts about giving away free content on social to gain followers versus wanting to engage people who will pay for your services. So I think that a good distinction to make is you're giving away like small actionable feedback. So you're not giving away like whole pieces of strategy necessarily. Like you're not doing free work for people. You're mainly trying to motivate them to work with you. So if I was posting on social media and I wanted somebody to engage services with us, like a post that I would create would be talking about like the engagement metrics, but like what our agency hits and what's like it's, you know what I mean, industry insights, but you would have to be in the industry and understand and run social accounts to be able to even get to the baseline numbers that we have at Quimby. So it's kind of like, what's another good example? Because I feel like that one wasn't as good. Oh, me telling you where you should live on social media if you're a B2B brand. Do you know what I mean? So, what is like information that you know that's, yes, it will make a difference, but it's not like you're giving away your entire secret sauce. Any other questions? We have 15 minutes, so.
Also, Ashley, I'm thinking about we had some questions submitted ahead of time.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder if I shouldn't pull those up and just see because they might feel you might have already covered these, but they might still feel relevant.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna I'll chat them to you. And then you can discern what you feel like is helpful to cover.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Just chatted those to you.
Yay. I would specifically like to understand LinkedIn strategy. Yeah, so when we think about LinkedIn, we think about the company and the brand page, and then we think about the founders and power players within the organization on LinkedIn, and we develop very different strategies depending on what we're looking at. So the company page might be focused on sharing their press hits, right? So like maybe they did a raise and they got featured in TechCrunch or something. So we would be talking about it on there. Maybe they're hiring. So we're talking about culture and like the company page is attracting talent. Maybe we're celebrating employee milestones. Maybe we're talking about product releases. There's a time and a place to do fun and engaging content on there. And if you want to see a brand who does it well, it's actually HubSpot. They have like funny like little posts that they do. So I think you can do that as well. But LinkedIn brand pages tend to skew more like professional, informational. And then the personal pages is where you kind of become the expert. So like co-founders will share a company update and like deep dive into specific insights they have on the company update. Do you know what I mean? So like they're diving deeper and they're giving those nuggets of wisdom in their tone of voice, like lending credibility to the brand, but it doesn't have to be the founder. It could be anybody who works at the organization that like has deep insights on something. And that goes a lot farther and also drives value to the company page because it's this real human who's posting to their network and everybody in their network is seeing the company page. You know what I mean? And then the company page can interact as well. I'm going to answer Alex's question before the rest of these. Thanks. Regarding video, how fancy does it need to be, especially with a small budget, limited time? I get intimidated and think I can't compete with some of the super fancy videos out there on TikTok and Reels. Is done better than perfect or is perfection needed? Done is better than perfect. So it used to be like beautifully curated feeds is what you needed on Instagram. Remember, people would like put their photos inside like the white background and like their whole feed would be like just like these inlaid photos. Now it's rough content. So I would shoot content and edit it to the best of your ability and put it up and put captions on it and do it. perfection is not needed. And in fact, some of like the roughest videos on the planet are the ones that go viral, because we're all a little rougher around the edges in private, right? So like, I think that resonates. Authenticity is king on social. So definitely just do it. Okay. When to hire someone to do my social media for me. We talked about that, and how to help that person find my voice. How do they find your voice? So you have to share content with them. So, like things that you've written, social posts that you've written that you love, competitor accounts, tone of voice that you really like, articles that you love. So, like, definitely be prepared to share a ton of examples. And then once you get the copy, you have to be really specific with feedback. So, the biggest issue on the client side, I would say for us, is when feedback is not specific. And normally it's like, they're going through it so quickly that they like didn't take the time, or like they don't want to be critical, right? Or whatever. So we always say like take your time, like be critical. And so I would encourage you to do the same. Like say like I don't like this word, I like this word, or this bothers me because X, Y, and Z. Like you have to explain why you don't like certain things, because people can't read your mind. So examples and then really succinct feedback. So all of these, there's like 3 questions on here that basically are like, how do I go viral? That in so many words. And I feel like there is not a secret recipe to go viral. And I know you've heard this before, but like I'm just going to say it again. There isn't a secret recipe to go viral. The stuff that goes viral hits on a very human basic need. You know it when you see it, because you're like, "Oh my god, I thought about this before. This thing bothers me," or like this pain point is a pain point for my target audience, or this is really funny, or this, do you know what I mean? Like you know when you see it, because it strikes that like human desire in you, that pain point in you. So that's why it's so helpful to know your target audience. So like um you can create content like that resonates. So a good example for social media managers that made all of us laugh really hard when we saw it is there was a meme, and it had to do with Facebook Business Manager. And the meme said like, I'm going to make a business manager so toxic that blah, like just like made fun of the process of being on Facebook Business Manager. And everybody was laughing because we've all been in that situation where we're like on with support and then you're like getting disconnected. And so like, think about like, just think about your clients' pain points from like inception to end. And there are little stories in there you could tease out that will help you go viral. How to be more efficient on social. Definitely get a social scheduling tool. All of them have like team management functionality in there. So like you can assign posts to team members to review the analytics, everything. I think that's really important. So there are tools to keep you organized. And then also, like, if you want to be more efficient on social, try using Chat GPT. I know that like other social media managers are like, oh my God, it's going to take your job. It's not going to take your job. It's going to help you produce better content. So like I use it to talk, like it's like a brainstorming buddy. So I'm like, I want to say this and I don't know how. And then they say something and I'm like, I hate that, but I think I like it like that. You know what I mean? Like go back and forth, have it be critical on your content, upload your social media strategy, tell it to poke holes in it, like use it as you would a strategic partner to get more efficient. That's what it's there for. What is the lowest cost social media management tool these days? There's a bunch of tools that have free plans. So like look at Hootsuite. I know they have like a $30 offering, I'm pretty sure. Look at Later, look at Planoly if that's still around. But that's where I would start. Any other questions? We have 5 minutes. And I feel like I went through this like we answered a lot on here.
I think there's one new one. What's the lowest cost social media management tool these days?
Oh, like I said, so Hootsuite, later Planoly. Anything else?
Love it. Love it. If anybody has questions, feel free. I'll sort of like start to wrap us up. But if anybody has questions, please interrupt me. You can unmute or chat them in. I don't want to miss anybody's questions or curiosities. I'm just going to drop a quick note into the chat. Ashley, thank you so much. This was so valuable and so helpful, and you answered so many questions. And just packed full of so many insights. So thank you both, for all the things that you shared live today, but also for everybody who I know is going to watch this later on, after the fact, asynchronously. Just so valuable and so helpful. So thank you for taking the time to do this and share this with us.
Thank you for being here with me, and happy to share the slides. I'll send them to you, Nicole. So if anybody wants them as well, and you can always reach out to me via email. So